Hey everyone, my name is Josh, and welcome back to your fourth stimulus check and news update. We have a lot of news to get into in today's video, but first, if you would like to receive 2 free stocks from Webull valued up to $2,300, make sure to claim them by clicking my link, which you will find in the description box below. Okay, so starting today, Congress will be kicking off possibly one of their busiest weeks of the year. This is because not only will they be dealing with a bill to fund the government, which they have just a few more days to avert a government shutdown, but they'll also be dealing with the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, as well as the bipartisan deal based around infrastructure. Now, you would think at the current pace of Congress, this could be done in maybe a month, but they're somehow going to try tackling all of these issues in just 1 week. So in the Senate today, they'll be voting on the House-passed government funding bill, which would keep federal agencies open until December 3rd, while at the same time, suspending the debt limit until December of 2022. This motion is guaranteed to fail since Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and other Republicans have opposed any increases to the debt limit. After this vote fails, which again, it should all things considered, Democrats will be faced with a few different options. The first thing they can do, which is the most likely of all scenarios, is that the Senate removes the debt limit provision, passes it, sends the bill back to the House, and it passes with a good amount of bipartisan support. Then, of course, President Biden would sign it into law, and they would avert a government shutdown, at least for the next couple of months. But of course, if they go that route, the debt limit problem would still be there, which wouldn't solve the issue for Democrats. Another possibility is that Democrats may attempt a 2 to 3 week continuing resolution, which would just simply kick the can down the road for a couple more weeks. If they do this, it still wouldn't make all that much sense for Democrats though, as it wouldn't solve the problem of raising the debt limit, and at this point, it really doesn't matter how much pressure they put on McConnell to budge on the debt limit, he's just not going to budge. They can call him a hypocrite or whatever they want, but at the end of the day, McConnell and Republicans have been pretty clear since day one. In their mind, all this extra spending is a waste and they'll do anything in their power to keep it from taking place. And if it does take place, Republicans want the Democrats to go with the do-it-alone approach, or in other words, through another reconciliation package. So that's what's currently being debated on as far as government funding goes. As far as the bipartisan infrastructure bill goes, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already backed out from her agreement to the moderates in her chamber from what was supposed to be a vote on that bill today. Instead of voting on it today, the 27th, as promised, they are now going to be scheduling a vote on the bipartisan bill on Thursday. Even though this is going to turn the moderate wing of her party off, it may make them just enough happy to know that they'll at least be voting on the bill this week. And at the same time, it will also buy her just a little bit more time to attempt getting the progressive wing of her party on board with the bill as well. If they voted on that bill today, for example, progressives such as Pramila Jayapal have made things pretty clear that they would reject the bipartisan package. This is because they fear that if they go forward with the bipartisan deal, moderates in their chamber would then lose interest in the much larger and more important bill, at least in their mind, the reconciliation package. Before the House moves forward with the reconciliation bill vote though, of course, they will need to work out a top-line figure with the Senate. After all, it really wouldn't make too much sense for the House to pass the $3.5 trillion reconciliation package if it had no chance of passing in the Senate. As long as Democrats have to deal with Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, the reconciliation package as they currently have it doesn't stand a chance of passing. Here is Representative Pramila Jayapal discussing what's going on in the mind of progressives.
Let's just talk about where we are right now.
Yeah.
Speaker Pelosi plans to bring, or had said she was going to bring, the bipartisan infrastructure plan to the floor of the House tomorrow. No, you have said that you and dozens of progressives will go vote against that bill, likely tanking it, if the $3.5 trillion spending bill does not come up first. Is it your understanding that the infrastructure bill is coming up for a vote tomorrow, and you and your fellow progressives will defeat it tomorrow? Is that what you expect will happen tomorrow?
I know we're working very hard to get agreement on the reconciliation package, and that, of course, has to be agreement across the Senate and the House, because we are not going to leave anyone behind. You know, we're not going to leave behind women who desperately need childcare. We're not going to leave behind taking on climate change and taking urgent action. We're not going to leave behind public housing. We're not going to leave behind immigrants who are essential workers and need to be acknowledged as such. And fundamentally, we're not going to leave behind healthcare in the midst of a healthcare crisis. So that's all the stuff that's in the Build Back Better Act, what we're calling the reconciliation bill. And our point is just we're ready to vote for both. We are excited to vote for both, and we will vote for both, but we need to actually get the reconciliation bill done. That was what we said 3.5 months ago, Jake.
Yeah.
And so, our belief is that we'll get there. We're very close, but we have to get to that reconciliation bill first.
Would it be enough if there were an agreement on the Build Back Better Act, the $3.5 trillion spending package, but not an actual vote tomorrow? Would that be enough for you in the House Progressives to vote for the infrastructure bill?
Well, the reconciliation bill does have to start in the House because it's a budget reconciliation bill.
Right.
But everything should be agreed upon. What we don't want to
So
have
an agreement's
happen,
good. An agreement is good.
Well, no, but an agreement of exactly what's in there. The language needs to be worked out because.
And a commitment that everybody's going to vote for it.
And everyone's going to vote for it. And if Republicans offer, amendments in a vote-a-rama, that we're not going to have Democratic senators suddenly vote with Republicans. So the idea here is, unlike many other bills, many other times that we do this, where the House passes a bill, it's not necessarily something that the Senate can do. The Senate then goes and passes their bill, and then we conference or we have back and forth. This is a pre-conferenced bill, which means everybody in the Senate and everybody in the House has to agree on every piece of it.
But Pelosi says that she's bringing the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan bill, to the floor of the House tomorrow for consideration. Are you going to vote for it or against it?
I don't believe there will be a vote. I mean, the Speaker,
you don't think there's going to be a vote tomorrow?
I mean, the Speaker is an incredibly good vote counter, and she knows exactly where her caucus stands, and we've been really clear on that.
The votes aren't there. She's not going to
bring it up.
The
votes aren't there. So I don't think she's going to bring it up, but I think the urgency is important. I mean, this, in some ways, the fact that this is there has finally provided the urgency for senators to engage in reconciliation, for the president to really weigh in. And, ultimately, we're delivering on the president's agenda. I mean, this is the Build Back Better agenda is not some crazy agenda that just a few people support. It's actually the vast majority of the Democratic caucus. And there's a few people in the House and a couple in the Senate who aren't quite there yet. But even moderates in frontline districts all support this Build Back Better agenda.
But just to clarify, you don't think there's going to be a vote tomorrow, but either way, you're looking for an agreement on the reconciliation, not necessarily a vote first when it comes to infrastructure.
Well, it's just the logistics of it, right?
Yeah.
Everything has to be done. There has to be kind of an ironclad.
Are you guys close to that at all, an agreement?
Well, I think we're finally talking, which is which is important because that hasn't been happening for the last couple of months.
So Jai Paul makes things pretty clear that until every single Democrat is on board with the top line spending and what's in the reconciliation package, they won't vote in favor of the bipartisan bill. Jai Paul also wants to make sure that Democrats in the Senate won't vote with Republicans in some of the amendments offered in the vote-a-rama. So it's pretty unclear whether or not Democrats will be able to get both of these bills done, and in my opinion at least, it's difficult to see them getting it done. Okay, so here's one of the leaders in the moderate caucus of the Democratic Party, Josh Gottheimer, discussing how he feels about the bipartisan bill being pushed back a few more days.
Appreciate it. So Speaker Pelosi made a promise to you to pass infrastructure by tomorrow. But just this morning, Speaker Pelosi said she's going to bring the bipartisan infrastructure plan to the floor for consideration tomorrow, but would only commit to a vote sometime this week. Is that acceptable to the moderate faction that you represent?
Well, as you know, first of all, thank you so much for having me. What's so important that people should understand is we've been working for months since April on this bipartisan infrastructure plan, which, as you know, passed out of the Senate in August the beginning of August with 69 votes, 50 Democrats, every Democrat from Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin, and 19 Republicans. It's been sitting there waiting for action in the House. Every single Democrat in the House voted to bring it to the floor for a vote this week. We're going to do it. We're going to have the votes. It'll come up tomorrow, and we're going to vote this week, early this week. And listen, I am very confident that we'll get this done. And as Pramila just said, we also need to get reconciliation done. We need to get both done. And the Speaker has said she'll get the votes, and no one's better at that than the Speaker. And so we're going to have a big week for the country, and it's going to be bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans are going to vote for that infrastructure bill early this week.
But you said in August that you struck a deal to hold a vote tomorrow, not just bringing it to the floor for consideration with a vote later. if you don't get a vote on infrastructure tomorrow, that no longer means that you won't support the reconciliation bill? You're giving a little bit here?
Oh, no, no. Listen, we're going to get a vote early this week, and let me
But not
be
tomorrow.
clear about that. Well, if it's going to be brought to the floor tomorrow. If the vote, the way these things work, if you start debating it and it rolls over to Tuesday, I think we're all reasonable people. But the bottom line is what's important, and the Speaker communicated this to all of us yesterday, is that we vote on it early this week, and that's going to happen. And what's really important is that everyone also understands that we are working, as Pramila just said, around the clock on getting reconciliation done as well. And I'm optimistic we're going to get both done. There's too much on the line here for our country. You think about infrastructure and what happened, that tragedy last night, the derailment in Montana on Amtrak, and of course, some here in New Jersey, we got hit so hard, as other parts of the country did, by Hurricane Ida. And in the infrastructure bill is climate resiliency to help fight climate change, obviously fix Amtrak and invest there in our roads, our bridges, our rails. We've got a tunnel between New York and New Jersey that's literally 113-year-olds and crumbling. Broadband. There's so much in this historic once-in-a-century package, and it's been sitting there, Jake, waiting for our consideration, waiting for us to vote on it since early August. I can't explain to anybody why we have this separate bill sitting here, and you've got all these hardworking men and women ready to go to work here of labor, ready to go to work and get this done, and we haven't voted on it. So that's why I know we have to get it done, and we will. And we also have to get reconciliation done, and that's also going to get done.
So it doesn't seem that Gottheimer is really all that upset about the vote being pushed back a few more days. In his mind, as long as it gets voted on this week, all is good. At the end, he also makes clear that he would still support the reconciliation package even if the bipartisan bill is passed first, but obviously, progressives don't have too much trust. They believe, as I mentioned, that if the bipartisan bill is passed first, all the moderates would then lose interest in the reconciliation package, and that one may never end up passing. So if Gottheimer and other moderates don't get a vote on the bipartisan bill this week, it's hard saying how they'll end up reacting. In some other news, with federal benefits having not been updated in years for SSI recipients, some lawmakers have finally been pushing for changes to take place. Even though none of these revisions have been placed in either of the two major bills being pushed in Congress, a Senate Finance Subcommittee held the first hearing on the program in over 20 years. This was a hearing led by Senator Brown, who was also the same senator that reintroduced the SSI Restoration Act back in June. In this bill, it would raise payments for SSI recipients by 31%, allow for them to have more assets, and it would also allow for them to earn more income without seeing a reduction in their monthly benefits. So it's hard to say whether or not these provisions will make their way into the reconciliation package or even pass in a standalone bill, but it's definitely good news for SSI recipients that these issues are finally making their way towards the front. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Again, if you would like to receive a couple of free stocks from Webull, make sure to quickly claim them by clicking my link, which you will find in the description box below. To receive the first stock, you will need to fully open an account. Then to receive the second free stock, which will be valued up to $2,000, you'll need to make a qualifying deposit of at least $5. And even if you aren't all that interested in investing or continue to invest at this point in time, you can always sell the free stocks that you receive and transfer that money, however much they're worth, right back to your bank account. So free stocks or free money is completely up to you. So once again, I hope everyone has a great and safe rest of their Monday, and I'll see you in the next video.